Dobrodošli, zdravo. This is part 4 in a series of messages about God. Of course, to rehash, to go back, first part is about God's general character. We talked about his creation and about how he likes to build, and then we moved to part 2. Part 2 was more about his purpose. Since he has a purpose for everything, what's our purpose? And so we talked about God's purpose and things. Part 3 was showing that our purpose was to walk with God. And we explained a little bit on how to walk with God. So if you haven't seen those, you can go back and watch those. But this particular part is what happens if we don't walk with God? What happens if we fail to walk with God? We choose not to walk with God. What then? What does life look like in a world where people do not walk with God? And that's what this is going to be about. And so I hope it's a blessing. I hope it can be an encouragement to you. And let's go. The results of not walking with God. Irmo. Every person has a choice. No man lives to himself. No man dies to himself. You can live alone in your house your entire life, but your actions will affect other people, either for positive or for negative, but your actions will affect people. So every person has a choice. You can walk with God or you can not walk with God. That is your choice. This point today is about what happens if we don't walk with God. Again, we pointed that Adam and Eve walked with God. We pointed to the end of the Old Testament where it talks about our duty in life is to walk humbly with God. We even showed other instances in the Bible where Enoch, he walked with God. In the New Testament, the Bible talks about him walking with us and in us, and that we are to walk with God. Here, we're dealing with, again, what happens if we don't. I want to show you this short video. It kind of sums up chapter 3 of Genesis. It shows Adam and Eve and their choice to disobey God. God gave them that choice. And as you see Adam and Eve, and they reach for that, and here specifically they show apples. We don't know what the fruit was that God told them not to eat. We see them disobey God and the results of that. And they were kicked out of the garden. And the flaming sword was put there to keep them out. This is the story. This is the evidence that God has gave us in the Bible for us to learn from. And so here's the video. So the first thing that we see from Genesis chapter 3, there are many things you can see, but I just pulled 3 things out here. We see the results of the fall. The first thing that happens is separation from God. After the garden, you don't see anymore that God comes down and walks around. He still communicates. He still talks with his people, but it's changed. Things are different. They've kicked out from the only home they've ever known. The whole thing, their whole life has been upended by a single decision. And you say it might be unfair. We don't know how long Adam and Eve walked in the garden or they walked with God. We don't know. But the fact is they got comfortable and they thought to themselves, God doesn't care. Or they may have thought to themselves, what's the big deal? The devil, the Satan, the snake, he came in and he began to convince them that what's it going to hurt? And I think that resonates with many people around. They think, what's it going to hurt? What's a little more? And this was the same lie that happened in Genesis chapter 3. And so they take the fruit, and you've seen the results. We're going to focus on 3 things that come from not walking with God. The first thing that happens when you don't walk with God is a separation from God. God cannot be around sin. God is perfect. God is holy. In the same way that light cannot be around darkness is the same way that God cannot be around sin. Sin is equated to darkness, and God is equated to light, and they cannot coexist. So, separation with God. With God, we see some things, that there was peace, there was joy, there was completeness, there was no needs. All their wants and desires was met. What are the opposites of that? The lack of peace, no joy, always wanting, never being full, always feeling empty. Look at the big problems in our world today with the sex, with the drugs, with money, with corruption, destroyed lives. This is a result of the fall of man, of separation from God. The second point I want to show you here of not walking with God is cursed work. Now I want to be clear, before the fall, there was work. God gave man a job just like we talked about, a purpose. He named animals, he kept the garden, it was work. But work was different after the fall, after the separation. In Genesis chapter 3, we find it says, you will work by the sweat of your brow. A cursed work, difficult work. It was no longer an easy work or a fun work. It was a difficult task that they were given to do. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. There's scientific laws that explain this. It's the same way when things happen in our life. Every decision you do has a reaction. The way you raise your children has a reaction. Where you spend your time, where you spend your money has a reaction. Everything has a reaction to your action. The same with this. Because nobody wants to work. Think about this. Cursed work, a difficult work. Think about people around you, around me. We don't want to work. Lazy for the most part, a lot of times. Really, if it comes into people that want to work, a lot of times it comes into greed. The Jews had a mindset in the Bible, if a man doesn't work, neither should he eat. The Roman society had this idea, and that's where we get our ideas from for the most part, is if you can figure out a way to make money and not work, you're the man. And so if you can figure out a way to manipulate, to get free money, play the lottery, whatever it takes for you to get money to live off of, whether it's steal, lie, cheat, gangs, mafia, manipulation. You look at the government, local government. You look at personal lives of people that you know. Everybody wants something for nothing. That's a result of the fall of man. It's a cursed work, and we'll do whatever it takes to get ahead. We're living in a world where we're dealing with a lot of these results from the original action. Think about it this way with this illustration. A man breaks a law. He chooses to have a car. He chooses to drive his car. And he chooses not to pay attention. He's not focused. And he hits a man and kills a man. The police show up and he has a choice. He could stay or he could run. Everybody has choice. Third thing that we'll find in Genesis chapter 3 as a result of not walking with God is death. You can go to funerals, you can go to grave sites and see stones after stones after stones of death. People don't want to go to these things. They don't want to go to a funeral. It scares them. It scares you. We don't know what's after life. It's a fearful thing. And so we will do whatever it takes not to die. We'll paint our faces. We'll try to look younger, to feel younger. Medicines, the doctors, the plastic surgery, all the things that we do trying to ward off death. Every action is a reaction. The action of not walking with God brings death. And that's what we see. All the things people try to do to avoid death, the lying again, the stealing, the killing, the destroying, drugs, corruption, to avoid death. If you could stay young for 100 years, if you could stay 40 years old for 100 years, what would you give to make that happen? I say if someone could figure that out, they would make millions. When God made man, he was complete, full. Joy, peace, happiness, everything was right there inside. He had it all, everything he needed. Then that peace left. The sin came in, and that's where the relationship changed. Ever since then, men has been on a journey trying to fulfill that joy, to make that peace happen again. Sometimes I think about a car. I can go back to cars. I'm a car guy. Someone gives you a Ferrari. You park your Ferrari in your garage, and you're so excited you want to take it for a test drive, but it's out of gas. So you look around the house, you think, I got to fill this up with something, I got to go for a drive. And so you look around your cabinets, you find drain cleaner, you pour it in the gas tank, you try to start the car, nothing. You go around, you find some vegetable oil, you shake it up and you pour it in your car, try to start it, nothing. Whiskey. You find some whiskey, you pour it in the car, you try to start it up, nothing. You see, the car was not designed to run on anything else but the fuel it was designed to run on. This is the same way with mankind. We were designed to run on something, and you and I and everyone else around is trying to put things in our body, drugs, alcohol, pornography, addictions, and it's not working. You throw your life into your job, you throw your life into your work and your family. It works for a while, but it doesn't make you full. Why is that? It's because that peace, that fuel that was meant to complete your life is missing, and it started in the garden. This is the result of the fall. Separation from God. No more fuel in the car. The curse of hard work and death. I would dare say you can look around and try to find a single problem in this earth you cannot trace back to. But it doesn't stop there. God himself, he could have looked at Adam and Eve and said, you failures. And he could have ended them right there. Snapped his fingers, restarted it, put new men on earth, and then started it again. Put a fence around the tree so no one could get to it, chop it down, something. He could have done something. But this whole picture, this beautiful story is meant to show the love of God. It's meant to show the restoration of God. It's meant to show the grace of God. the mercy of God. God didn't wipe them out. God didn't kill them. God wasn't done with them. He wanted to fix them. He wanted to complete them again, to renew them. So the first death that happened was through the hands of God. Man brought it upon. In other words, Adam and Eve caused it. But the first animal that was slain was done by God's hands. God's hands got dirty and made a covering for Adam and Eve. Do you see how this relates? If you've read the Bible at all, you know where this is going. God himself made a sacrifice, covered Adam and Eve so that relationship could be restored. The whole purpose of that sacrifice was to restore a relationship. Interessante. Things were going to be different. You can't undo. Justice has to be paid. God kicked them out of the garden because there were two trees, the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. They took of the knowledge of good and evil, but of the tree of life they didn't take. And if they would have taken that, you would be stuck in this nasty earth for eternity. And God doesn't want that. He wants you to have a new body, a new home, a new earth. That's what the end of the book says. The story continues like this. God just doesn't stop at sin. He makes a way to restore relationship with him. That's what he wants. So you may be saying, I messed up. I can look back at that time when I took up the fruit that I knew I wasn't supposed to take. Whether that be a relationship, whether that be a substance, maybe it's even murder. Whatever the case is, you know in your life what it was that separated you from God. Matter of fact, the Bible even says we were born sinners. We were born separated from God. God doesn't leave it there. God doesn't stop there. He wants us to be renewed. There is hope. He's not done with you, not done with me. You look at chapter 4 of Genesis, they mess up again. Mankind is continually messing up, but that's what God did for us. He covers our sin, not just so we can live good lives. He covers our sin and pays our price that we can be in fellowship with him. Walk with him, just like it was in the garden. He wants to restore that for you, not just to give you a better life. That's not his purpose for you. His purpose for you is to walk with him like we covered already. Are you willing to do that? Do you want to do that? Are you just concerned with living your life? If you decide that you want to walk with God, it's going to cost you something. It's not easy. There's things you're going to have to probably give up. If you're looking for all the joys of this world, then walking with God is not for you. If you want the sex, drugs, and rock and roll of this world, walking with God is not for you. But you will pay the consequences of not walking with God. You will feel separation from God. The curse of hard work is upon every man, and you will know what that is, and death. You will experience death that you've never experienced before. I'm not just talking about when you lay your head in your casket when life is over. The Bible says there's a second death. Appointed unto man once to die, and after this the judgment. Google it. The second death. Hell. For those who choose not to walk with God. You don't have to experience these things. God doesn't want you to. He did all he can to make you not go there, to make you not experience those things. But for those Christians who want to walk with God and please their Maker and to live their lives like it was intended to, there's only one death that we have to experience, and that's to shake off this old body. The Bible says we'll have a new body. The next message, we're going to talk about hope. To think about Adam and Eve and them messing up and all the things that they had, to think they could never go back to that. That's not what God wanted them to experience and feel. He wanted them to know what hope is. He wanted to bring them joy. He wanted to bring them peace, happiness, and only God can do that. He wants the same thing for you. You that are searching in this world for hope, joy, and peace in all the wrong places. You're putting alcohol in your Ferrari. All the wrong things you're putting in your Ferrari, trying to get it to run, but deep down inside, you still know that this is not working. It is not working for you. And you're right, it's not going to work. There's millions of people on this earth who have experienced what it's like to put the right kind of gas in the car, that their life runs. It may not be a beautiful life. That's not what it's meant to be, but it's designed to walk with God. You can experience that. There is hope. We hope you've enjoyed these short messages. Feel free to share friends and family. But the most important thing is that if you was to die today, if your life was to be cut short, do you know for sure where you would go when you die? The Bible says you can know. It literally says that. You can know. The Bible says these things are written that ye may know. You can know. It's possible to know what happens when you die. To be with him forever or to be separated from him for eternity. That's the most important question. We'd like to help you with that. And secondly, our heart is to bring people together in the Bible. This whole online thing is not God's design. This is of necessity because of our busy lives and all the crazy stuff that we're going through. When you're driving in your car, when you're riding the bus, you can listen and be encouraged and grow in the Lord this way. But this is not God's perfect design. If you want to fulfill God's perfect design in your life, God's made this institution called a church. He wants you to assemble with people who believe the Bible, to assemble together, to have each other's back. The original community, Christ-centered community. It's just called a church, ecclesia, a gathering, a called out assembly. You can look it up. It's not a building, it's a people. We're here in Serbia. We've got brothers and sisters all around. We would love to meet you. You can email us below, and we'll plan time we can all get together and worship the Lord together and learn more about his precious word, and that you can grow. We can grow together, help one another in this crazy, difficult, sinful, separated, cursed, and dying world. God bless you. Pozdrav. Ciao.